Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show. Sorry about any kind of delay there whatsoever. Hit some buttons wrong. Lots of things to talk about today. Let's get right to it. Our first conversation we're having, I can't believe I'm not going to start with the Oscars, although most days, most times, that's not where we would start a conversation. The typical reaction a day after the Oscars in the world in which I'm in is that a lot of us just don't care. A lot of us have no real interest in any of the stuff that goes on because of all the different ways in which politics plays a huge part for Hollywood nowadays. But when you slap a guy, when one man slaps another man, it becomes a topic we have to talk about. But before I do that, just because I feel like we should, let's talk a little bit about President Biden, some of the conversations he had last week, and the way in which the White House had to walk a lot of it back. I think the best place to start is Fox News. This is Rebecca Grant saying right after these comments were made by the president that it'll be stunning if they just get left out there and don't get fixed at some point down the road.
Russia is failing, and a defeat of the Russian military in Ukraine can make Europe safer for generations. But Eric, you're right. That was a stunning remark by Biden. He said, for God's sakes, Putin must not remain. I think that's unprecedented in U.S.-Russian diplomatic history. That puts U.S.-Russia relations in the deep freeze. It was a huge and stunning revelation. Absolutely. He did call for regime change. Let's see if the State Department or White House tries to walk that back later or not.
Oh, they walked it back so very hard. So let's actually do it. If you don't know what we're talking about, if you don't know how this all went, there were three big mistakes that our president made. And you know what's really interesting is that, and I do this all the time, and I know the whataboutism or whatnot seems unfair sometimes in the world we live in, but this like really is. There's no what about this, I guess. This really is the way that we reacted, or a lot of media did, to our former president, and the way we react to the new one. If the former president made a mistake of any kind, even just a verbal one, everybody, it felt like, in a lot of the media places, just swarmed. They attacked. They thought it was the worst thing ever, and how apparently our country was on the verge of collapse because the leadership was so weak at the top. That was last time. Now we have a president who says stuff that makes no sense, that he has to be corrected by his own administration after the fact, and we apparently just blaze on. We're like, that's fine. That's just Joe being Joe. But here they are, the three mistakes he made over the weekend, and the three times his own staff told the American people what the president actually meant.
For God's sake, this man cannot remain power.
The White House trying to make clear in the aftermath, or making very clear in the aftermath, he was not, in fact, calling for regime change.
And you're going to see when you're there, and some of you have been there, you're going to see women, young people stand in the middle of front of a damn tank.
White House officials are telling us that President Biden does not intend to send U.S. troops into Ukraine.
If chemical weapons were used in Ukraine, would that trigger a military response from NATO?
It would trigger a response in kind.
The United States has no intention of using chemical weapons, period, under any circumstance.
It would not trigger a response in kind, apparently. That is terrible. I mean, I'm not telling you something you don't know. To be honest, that's probably the easiest take I could have on this. But in the course of just a couple days, while traveling to NATO countries, while having conversations about an ongoing invasion of Ukraine by Russia, where Russia is killing civilians, bombing indiscriminately, not really going after military targets per se. Our president just flubbed a whole few days. And this is the same thing we've seen from the vice president. This is the same thing we see all the time in the world of this administration, being incapable of even handling a clear message. That is important, to say the very least. That is something that matters and something that we used to care about. By the way, Jen Psaki, I don't know if she did this administration any favors. The president reminded us over the weekend that the last time Putin decided that it was okay to invade Ukraine and then annex a part of it, well, that happened under Biden's watch, too.
You know, I was at the State Department. The president was the vice president the last time Russia invaded Ukraine. This is a pattern of horror from from President Putin and from the cronies around him. Specifically
targeting Democrats, and I guess in some way, shape, or form, I know he's just the vice president, but specifically seeming to target Biden. And that also matters in the world of how does the world view what is the international opinion of the leadership at the top. What is the risk? I also do have some Trump audio. I can just play that real quickly, and then we will move on to the slap scene around the world, which was sort of crazy. But here is Trump. He's just asking some questions about what happened to our military specifically. And what he means is the leadership in our military. And what he specifically means is one military leader that he seems to very much dislike. And I wouldn't go so far as to target the military, but I do think, obviously, the commander-in-chief deserves blame every time that we misstep. And certainly referencing Afghanistan again is part of the reason a lot of us can say that it would make a lot of sense if internationally we're not looked at as a country led by someone capable of wielding the force of our military. But here's Trump.
I put the General Patton up. You saw that, right? Where the hell are our General Pattons? Milley. How about Milley? Sir, it's cheaper to leave the equipment, sir, than it is to take it out. $85 billion. I said, you mean it's cheaper? We could send a pilot in, take a plane out. We'll send 200 pilots. We'll bring our planes out. We'll bring them to Pakistan and we'll fly them into the United States. You think it's better to leave them there? $100 million planes and helicopters? Sir, it's cheaper. I tell you, it's cheaper, sir. That's when I realized he was a freaking idiot.
I mean, sorry. There's something about the way in which former President Trump talks. And I know a lot of people don't like him for a lot of the things he said. And I'm not telling you you should or not. I'm not going there necessarily today. Although he did announce also that he's probably running for president again. And he did continue to throw out that the last election was fraudulent, something I don't believe actually impacted the outcome of the election. I don't know why I even say that all the time, because most people have their opinion, and I don't think I'm changing anyone's. But it is just interesting to hear him go after, I guess, one specific leader. All right, we have to move on. We got to do the Chris Rock stuff. So Chris Rock got slapped in the face hard. Like, it wasn't a little slap by Will Smith. The weirdest thing about this is, one, how many people are now talking about the Oscars when, as I said, usually we don't do that. But two, that Will Smith had not yet gotten his award. I don't know why it changed the level of interest for me, but Will Smith was a pretty much lock to win the Best Actor award. He is the second black man in the history of the Oscars to win that award. Sidney Poitier, who recently passed away, the other. And so it was a pretty big moment in the world of Hollywood, Oscars, all of that sort of stuff. And so the fact that this occurs before, you would assume a lot of eyes would be on the acceptance speech moment, was just surreal. To say, a lot of people thought it was fake. A lot of people, because the Oscars has done this before, or at least award shows have, thought this was just created. But Chris Rock even was asked by police if he wanted to press charges, and he decided not to, is the information we have right now. But this, to me, again, is insane. Here first is the joke, and the uncensored version, sort of. I mean, in the United States, we heard none of the words. Here, I can't play any of the bad words because we'll get in trouble. But I will play the stuff that was muted that is not going to get us losing any sort of licensing, because I think it is important.
Jada, I love you. G.I. Jane 2, can't wait to see it. All right?
Actually, one other quick thing. So Jada Pinkett Smith has a shaved head. She has it because she suffers from alopecia. And she's been talking about that since I guess she found out about it in 2018 and actually over the summer. And this is all stuff I didn't know. It's not like I was a big expert in the world of Jada Pinkett Smith. But I found out that over the summer, her and one of her daughters went on social media and like shaved her head in a fairly emotional thing. Chris Rock has also been making fun of Will and Jada for a while. Apparently, there's a beef between them. But anyway, Chris Rock throws the joke out. And just to give you the context the internet has been very interested in, Will Smith initially laughed, then looked over at Jada, who was not laughing and did not seem happy at all, and then stood up and approached Rock.
That was a nice one. Okay. I'm out here. Richard.
There's nothing better than a Chris Rock that knows something's about to go down. I mean, that's one of my favorite moments, too, is he's like, something's going to happen here.
Richard. Wow.
That is a hit, too, by the way. Like, it was open hand. It was not a fist. I don't know if that matters. Judd Apatow, who's a writer and director of movies, said that Smith could have killed him on Twitter and then deleted it. Because I don't think you can open hand kill a guy, but here we go.
Wow. Will Smith just smacked the
I will say this about Chris Rock, too. I'm not going to defend the joke, per se. I don't even know if I want to go into that world at all. But the fact that his immediate reaction was to make a joke, and a pretty funny joke at that, is typical Chris Rock, I would say the least. Hear a little bit more.
Wow, dude.
Yes.
It was a G.I. Jane joke.
Keep my wife's name out your mouth.
I'm going to, okay?
And then they moved on. And then Chris Rock stumbled through the rest of his, and I think he was actually more thrown off. This says something about the professional that is a Chris Rock, more thrown off by the screaming and yelling than he was by getting slapped in the face by Will Smith. But there was one other quick thing I wanted to play, then we definitely should take a break. This is Will Smith's speech, just a part of it, when he actually did a few things that were interesting. He opened it up by saying how he's a defender of his family, much like the character he played that he won an award for was a defender of his. People didn't all seem in on the defense of my actions start to his speech. He went on to apologize to everybody but Chris Rock, it seemed. And then he said one other thing.
This is a beautiful moment, and I'm not crying for winning an award. It's not about winning an award for me. It's about being able to shine light on all of the people, Tim and Trevor and Zach and Sanaya and Demi.
See, here's the thing. I don't think it's about, and he keeps going on. He mentions the Williams sisters and eventually gets some applause. I don't think that's why you're crying, Will. I think that Will Smith might be crying because he has no idea what the fallout will be from the actions that he chose to take. And that, I guess that's the last thing, to weigh in on the actual what happened. I think a lot of people, just on a surface level, if you hear a husband gets mad at a joke at the expense of his wife, a lot of people get that part. It's the standing up and slapping a guy part that seems more nuanced. People seem to not all be in agreement. A lot of people actually seem to think, and I think that is wrong. It went too far. But I will say that at least the anger part, I don't think a lot of us would struggle to get where the anger came from. It's just everything else that happens. And then as Hollywood people are one to do, I think Will was more concerned that even though he's winning an Oscar for the first time in his acting career, and people think that maybe he should have won one before that moment, he might not be, he might get cancel cultured out. He might be woked out of Hollywood. People might not want to watch a guy who slapped somebody else at the Oscars. And then just one other quick thing from him.
Art imitates life. I look like the crazy father, just like they said. I look like crazy father, just like they said about Richard Williams. But love will make you do crazy things.
Yeah, it's that last part that a lot of people reacted to. Love will make you do crazy things. Not really sure that that's a valuable excuse because a lot of people have pointed to how that's kind of typical abuser type of sentences. But all right, we'll take a break. We have a lot more to talk about throughout the show. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
Helen Keller is a Nazi terrorist that is a male. Is that what you're telling me right now?
Yeah.
Are you thinking of Hitler?
Who's Hitler?
Vaccines work, but only the Chad Benson Show is 100% effective against stupidity.
Do you know what D-Day is? D-Day.
A person? A rapper?
God, Karen, you are so stupid.
Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and wherever you find your favorite woke-free podcasts. This is the Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins, filling in. Thrilled to be with you. A quick study that you might have interest in. Apparently, one company now knows, researchers at Juro.ai have decided the absolute maximum amount of life we could have is 150 years. The maximum age any of us can reach, 150. Whether or not that includes some improvements in medicine, environment, technology, and whatnot, I think is a little bit out there still as to how much needs to go down other than just living an absolutely perfect version of every recommendation of life and getting lucky, I imagine. And we have not had anyone reach 150 that I'm aware of. The oldest living person is 122 currently. But the researchers did a study into 85-year-olds, 70,000 of them, decided how valuable it would be, given certain conditions, for them to continue to fight disease, to live to 150. I've made a bunch of jokes about how I would let any computer piece be put into my body to live as long as humanly possible. But when I hear something like this, like the actual version of just naturally making it that long, I imagine a lot of us wouldn't want to get that high. I imagine that it's not the same thing. You're not in the same health. You're not moving around the same way that late into things at 150 years old. I don't know. Something about it just, I've immediately rethought my position that I would like to last as long as possible and let Bezos put any Amazon-branded parts in me, even though I would be able to restock your Amazon purchases. All right, quick break, a lot more. Greg Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins, filling in. Thrilled to be with you. Lots of stuff to talk about. Our president's approval rating is at a record low on economy. It is down to 33% of Americans think that our president, President Biden, is doing a good job in the world of economy. One of the biggest reasons why, in my opinion, other than the fact that there's been so many train wrecks in a year plus in office, is the fact that you keep talking about green energy. You just keep talking about it in spite of the very real world we live in right now. The ease of most Americans to be like, hey, some things are broken. When I go to the gas pump, it costs a ridiculous amount of money. It's one of my favorite memes of the Will Smith slap across Chris Rock's face was people going to the gas pump as Chris Rock and the price of the gas as Will Smith's hand. I thought that was pretty funny. It's out there. Maybe I'll put it up on social media, Facebook.com/Craig Collins Show or Chad Benson Show to check out some of the stuff I probably talk about today. But anyway, this makes a lot of sense. It's going to cost Democrats a lot of things. There's going to be a run, I think, as most people do, in the midterm elections on a lot of the control positions for Democrats in pretty much, I honestly, I think like in every office, like even your local offices, I imagine Republicans are going to have a giant set of wins, and it's going to be insane. And this is the biggest reason why. But even Joe Manchin, who was recently talking about a $1 trillion tax increase, Joe Manchin, who Democrats hate now because of the amount of spending he was uncomfortable doing. I think they continue to go a certain road that just seems disconnected with everything that is the actual beliefs, thoughts, opinions of most Americans right now. And I would say it's shocking, but I guess it's really not. I guess it's just more of the same, more of what we've seen all the time in these worlds. It does, at least to me, and I don't know to how many other people, remind you of the biggest problem for a lot of politicians, which is governing based on what you think is popular to say, as opposed to any level of thinking about what could actually be valuable in the world of policy, in the world of our country and whatnot. All right, moving on. Other things in the news. I mentioned this earlier. I do want to play the audio. Former President Donald Trump said he will run again, pretty much. And I mean, this isn't shocking at all, but it will be interesting because I'll tell you this. Outside of the hot button issue, if that's what you want to call it, although most Republicans, I think, according to recent polling, do agree with the president on the issue of fraud in the last election. But other than that, I think Trump is kind of a slam dunk on every valuable conversation going on right now. On energy, our former president would be someone who would ramp up the creation of gas, of oil in our country. And honestly, with the way in which things go in the world, and especially with how valuable the U.S. has become in exporting natural gas, liquid natural gas, that is a thing that they actually last year, and I don't give any credit to Biden for this at all. It's just something that's been ramping up for a while. We exported more natural gas via that process than even via pipeline. So when if you're arguing with someone and they go, the United States can't even impact the energy competition in the world, the one that made Russia so confident that they could do whatever they wanted to do in Europe and that Europe wouldn't stand against them, the answer is no, you're just wrong. But he would win on that issue. He would win on the economy and how it did for a majority of his presidency, minus that COVID time where stuff was shut down. There are just some of the border is one of the bigger things. So again, here is the former president saying that, well, he's won twice, according to him, and he's probably going to have to go again.
The truth is, I ran twice, I won twice, and I did much better the second time. And now we just may have to do it again.
I think he's just going to start chanting USA. Yeah, there it is. There it is at the end. You know what's so interesting to me about all this? And I know that there are people on both sides of the aisle who don't like the former president for the way that he carried himself, the things that he said, all of that. I wonder, for all the Trump haters out there, the people that have Trump derangement syndrome, if that's what we want to continue to call it, if this version of events is worse than the idea of him just having won again last time. And he did do better, by the way. He is absolutely accurate in saying he got even more votes than when he did win in 2016. So there is a certain amount of truth, even with all the different things that occurred during the Trump presidency, of him becoming even more popular. But he has held his grasp on messaging in the Republican Party. Some people very upset about that, Republicans and non-Republicans alike. But he has held it. He has held his influence. He is someone who now, as I said, is going to have a lot of the biggest wins that you would hear about, or the questions that would be asked about in a debate, all be things that he talked about his first time running for and then winning office. It's just so interesting to think of, in my opinion, how much more powerful the political person Donald Trump is. And I know he's not a politician per se, even though he was our president, but because of the fact that he lost, or at least he's not the president right now, depending on your opinion of all that, and that he would likely then run again, and I think have a tremendous chance to win. I think the only true Republican right now that feels as though they'd have any shot to win the nomination instead is Ron DeSantis. And DeSantis does continue to do things that I think are aligned with some of the bigger conversations on his side of the aisle and that side of the aisle as well. One of the bigger ones is, again, talking about parents' involvement in education, which, by the way, and I have other audio I could play, but I think it's just valuable to simply state it. It is nuts, some of the arguments in general, when we think about them. I don't even care who is running on the Republican side of the aisle. There's some things that are too easy to fight right now. When you talk about parents and how they deserve to have a role in the education of their children, like I wouldn't have bet on that as a political talking point, to be like, wait, who's on the other side of that? Who's saying that they're not supposed to have a role? And I know some people would accuse Republicans of changing the truth there, and maybe Democrats. But truthfully, there's a version of that is absolutely accurate. police officers, and a push and a fight against them is the thing that's politically one-sided. There's a bunch of violence that's happened all throughout our country since those narratives took off. And so, again, easy conversation. The border is truly a mess. No matter what you think about what needs to be done in the world of legal immigration, if you need some changes or think there need to be changes, and a couple Republicans are starting to talk about that, I think. The truth is that I think no one can support illegal immigration, honestly, at all. Like, I think that it doesn't make sense to let people break the law. But even more importantly than that, in the way in which we have it right now, the crazy amount of things we're seeing and the amount of people being let in, and just the country having that struggle be as significant as it is. And I guess this is the biggest problem. And this is what I've said a couple times on the show today. I just believe that Democrats have forgotten how to govern in reality. They now want to govern based on Twitter, social media, and ideology. They want to be aligned with you in whatever thing you think or say that is super extra double woke. That's the way you have to order it at the grocery store, at the restaurant. Super extra double woke version. That's what they do. And for some reason, it is finally hitting them in the face. Kind of like, yes, I went there on purpose. Will Smith when he smacked Chris Rock. And I will talk more about that. I can't believe I'm going to talk about the Oscars a bunch, filling in for Chad today. One other thing I wanted to touch on, and this is just very quick, totally different. A Pennsylvania woman was left looking like a Monsters, Inc. character. That's her words. So don't go after me. Her name is Kaylee Jones. She's 23. She got lip fillers. She had the giant puffy, like the fish lips put in for real, and they went way too crazy. And now, of course, she's probably upset about it. I just wanted to say one thing, since this went viral on social media. I don't get the giant lips. And I know that that's probably the road we don't want to go. I don't want to ask any of the listeners to fill me in that feel different about it. But I've never got like the fish lips look when you take a selfie, any of that, or wanting that to be the way you really look all the time in your life. I'm not going to tell you to do some things, but I get some reasons that people have some of those changes done to their bodies, nose jobs and whatnots on every occasion. I'm sure some of that makes sense. I'll never understand the "it looks like my lips got stuck in a vacuum" move that people want to make. But this person definitely went that road, and it definitely went the wrong way. So I guess if I want to stand on anything today, if I want to have any message for you, and maybe it's not the jumping on the soapbox stuff about Republicans and Democrats or how appropriate it is for Will Smith to slap a dude. I think the only thing I want to tell you is don't have surgery to make your lips into giant, giant things. Just don't do that. That is a Craig Collins approved message on the Chad Benson Show. And I feel good about the only thing I'm really taking a very firm stance on today. Honestly, I would have that as part of my campaign if I was running for office. Is not that I would outlaw it, but I would just heavily recommend against it, which I guess makes me more Democrat than a Republican. Now that hurts to say because I wouldn't actually take any action. I just have the strong words. And then, if everybody starts getting lip things, it's not on me. Right? President Biden? All right, quick break. A lot more to talk about. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
Welcome to Chad. No, not the country. The institution. The Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Sad news. Taylor Hawkins passed away, the drummer of Foo Fighters. He died on Friday, just hours before they were set to perform. He actually, in initial toxicology tests, was found to have 10 psychoactive substances and medicines in his system. There's no actual cause of death officially announced. Obviously, I think a lot of people will assume that the things in his body played a role in that. We don't know for sure. Investigations are continuing. I have a little bit of audio. This is from when Taylor was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which actually just happened last year as well. A few different voices, including from the Police. Jack Black's in there, Paul McCartney. It's interesting. But obviously very, very sad news that seemed to truly devastate all of the Foo Fighters, which it obviously would. And Dave Grohl specifically, I think, was seen just weeping at the airport just surreal, that moment. But here, let's get a little bit of this audio of some of the conversations that were being had when they were inducting Taylor into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. All right, hold on. We got an issue with this audio. Give me an extra second. There's been a technology issue or two today, but I will get that fixed for you just shortly here, and then we will get to this audio of Taylor Hawkins. Let's go.
Taylor's in that John Bonham school of drummer. Not the persnickety stuff, but the basic fundamental where every time it sounds very important.
Taylor has the toughest job because he's the drummer in a band that includes the greatest drummer alive. And he's got technique that Dave only dreams about.
You're going to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Foo Fighters.
First, I'd like to thank Dave. None of this would happen if it wasn't for Dave. Thank you for letting me be in your band. I want to thank my beautiful wife, Allison, my beautiful children, Shane Hawkins, Annabelle Hawkins, Everly Hawkins. I love you guys so much. Thanks, everyone.
It's times like these you learn to love again.
As I said, really, really sad news. And honestly, I don't know if there will emerge any kind of conversation out of all of this about addiction, about any of that. If we do find out that the things in his system, the psychoactives and whatnot, played a role in it. And if you don't remember, if you're not someone that follows music or the Foo Fighters a lot, Taylor did have a overdose. I think it was in London back in 2001. Band members had talked about how scary that was in a documentary the Foo Fighters put out back and forth. I do have a little bit of that audio too, since they do talk about, I think, Dave Grohl specifically and Taylor, the connection they have. And as you just heard there, Dave Grohl, a fairly good drummer in his own right. But I just think it's so interesting to have some of these conversations that might emerge in these really sad moments, and maybe that an impact can be had, as weird as it is to immediately look for some sort of positive in a very sad story. But maybe there is a reaction or something of value. I know this happens a lot in the world of music or fame, but maybe there will be a positive somewhere in the world. Maybe we won't even know about it. Maybe someone will be jarred back into a world of fighting addiction again if we find out that's what played a role. He was only 50, by the way, if I didn't say that. But here is the documentary. And as I said, some of the conversations about a 2001 drug overdose.
I didn't really know how to deal with the way you were supposed to be. And I thought that to be a rock and roller, you have to be the Keith Richards. You have to be the real deal.
I would tell him, I'd say, dude, I love you like a brother, but I'm worried about you, We were in London. And we all went out to a bar one night. In the morning, I got a call that he was on his way to the hospital.
We got word that Taylor was in a coma at the hospital. OD'd on, I think it was heroin that he did.
It was so weird, like he hadn't died, but he had overdosed. I just felt so totally helpless, And
Dave's like my best friend. And even more than like a best friend, he's like a brother. He really is. And yeah, he was, as I would be with him, if something happened to Dave where he was on the brink of death, I would be losing my mind. And, he was losing his mind.
I do imagine how true those words are right now, that Dave Grohl or anyone that gets close to someone who struggles with something, because I imagine even the band isn't really sure until they get the official statement what happened, what caused Taylor to pass away. But I imagine, and this is me projecting a bit, I've not had a loved one in my own life that's actually struggled this deeply with something like this. But I just think about the way in which you might start to talk or blame yourself or wonder what you could have done differently to help someone you care about. And then just the impact of all of that. And of course, we'll wait to hear more information, but I just wanted to take a few minutes to pay tribute to the talent that Taylor Hawkins certainly had. And then also the sadness in that story. All right, I want to shift gears to something else. This is technically still a music segment, I guess, because this is sort of a music bit. And it's very, very different. We're going to try to uplift just a little bit. Call this a palate cleanser. This is viral audio of a cat singing the blues. The reason this is out there is apparently today is National Respect Your Cat Day, which makes no sense to me whatsoever, and how we come up with these national holidays. But in order to, I guess, respect cats, any of them out here, here's a little bit of a cat singing the blues. Oh, man. All right. We'll get to more of that later. It's not a killer set so far. The cat is definitely taking the slow walk to take over the microphone to have a big hit out there. But that's blues music. If ever I've heard it before. I have a new puppy. I need to teach my new puppy how to react to something. I can't play an instrument, so it's going to be extra difficult for me and my puppy to take off and become a big thing. But I love the fact that this is out there, that this is a viral musical moment, and someone probably is getting now enough YouTube downloads to make money off of being able to play a riff on a guitar, point at a cat, and the cat does a little meow, and we call that the blues. That's what that is right there. It is certainly interesting, and something that, again, I guess just for whatever reason I want to compete with and probably fail at being good at. But you never know. I mean, maybe it takes off, and I'll use my dog and I's hit in some upcoming radio show of some kind. All right. A lot to get to today on the show. A lot of serious things, a lot of shocking and maybe somewhat silly things. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Thrilled to be here. Lots of stuff to talk about. I can't help it. I got to keep talking about the Oscars today. I'm even going to just go there right away because I can't get away from this story, and I don't really want to. Chris Rock made a joke last night at the Oscars. How interesting is it, honestly, just first and foremost, that the Oscars actually feels relevant for a day because it's been a while. The ratings last year were absolutely atrocious. I don't know if the ratings are out yet for this year. I haven't even looked because I don't even care because everybody's talking about it. Whether you watched it or not, you certainly have probably now heard at some point about how Chris Rock got slapped in the face by Will Smith. And then Will Smith moments later won an award and said stuff to a crowd of people that didn't know how to feel about Will Smith. And honestly, probably most people in the world of Hollywood had to check with their publicist before feeling anything. But let's do it first. Here is the audio of Chris Rock making a joke at Jada Pinkett's expense, a joke about her shaved head. And she does struggle with a medical condition. She has alopecia that has caused her to decide to do this. So there is a reason why, a medical reason why, she looks the way she does, and Will Smith would be mad on her behalf. That's something I'll say. Not whether or not you should get up and slap a man, but at least this part.
Jada, I love you. G.I. Jane 2, can't wait to see it. All right?
Look, I don't know how tame that joke is. He says it's pretty tame, and I actually kind of think that as far as making fun of somebody's hairstyle, a G.I. Jane joke, which feels very old, by the way, I'm a little bit disappointed in Chris Rock just because that reference is so dated now. But I do think that it probably falls in line of the less nasty of jokes in that world. I don't know if I'm already going to get in trouble myself for saying something there. Let's continue.
That was a nice one. Okay. I'm out here. Richard.
I have to be honest. I'm sorry. I'm just going to keep jumping in on this. There's going to be a lot of times in my life now, because I say stuff that I probably shouldn't say, and some people react to me sometimes. There's going to be a lot of times in my life now where somebody reacts, and I'll think of that moment by Chris Rock when Will Smith is getting out of his chair and approaching him, and Chris Rock just says the "uh-oh." Honestly, it'll probably be in Chris's voice in the back of my head. Just, this is going to be a problem. Let's do a little more.
Richard. Wow.
Yeah, he just gets slapped in the face. And the audio of that does make it sound like he punched him, but it was open hand.
Will Smith just smacked the Wow, dude.
You know what's really interesting, by the way, because I'm just going to keep interrupting. Most people, I think, even in the audience, even as Will Smith smacked Chris Rock across the face as significantly as you heard, you can actually hear the audio of it. Most people are still sort of laughing and probably think all of this is scripted. It's not till Will sits down and yells get my wife's name out of your mouth and some other stuff, that people all start to realize it's real. And there's actually video and photos of several celebrity reactions, which seem more like it's to that moment than the slap itself, which says something about Hollywood, in all honesty, that we think everything is so fake in the world of Hollywood that one guy can stand up in the middle of an award show, smack another man just open-handed as hard as he can across the face, go sit back down, and people are like, wow, this is a lovely show so far. And honestly, I wonder if this will be a running gag now. If in future Academy Award shows, in order to bring eyeballs back to that very much waning in popularity event, you're just like making jokes about who's going to slap who. And how that's all going to go. But anyway, a little bit more.
Yeah. It was a G.I. Jane joke.
Keep my wife's name out your mouth.
I'm going to, okay?
Yeah, and that was the end of the moment. And then Chris tries to move on, stumbles through it, and eventually introduces his category. But what's so interesting to me, and I guess this is just the last thing I'll say on a topic that feels like I'm not going to be able to get away from it today, whether that's good or bad, I don't know. I understand the anger. That part I do get. If it's your wife and if the thing being made fun of with you sitting a mere set of feet away from the person making the joke is in any way, shape, or form a medical condition, I do understand being upset about that, especially if you look over and your wife seems extra upset about that. I actually kind of had a disagreement. I wouldn't call it a very spirited one with my wife because we were watching the Oscars. My wife loves them. And I just sit there like a good husband and watch what the wife wants to put on television. But as she's watching them, that moment happens. And I immediately went that road. My brain, not defending the action, but just defending the anger, I guess, at least a little bit, or at least understanding it. Maybe not defending it, but getting it. And my wife was like, no, I would never want you to slap someone on my behalf. And I'm happy about that, by the way, because I don't know if I'd want to be in this situation. But then, all right, I'll play a little bit more. Will Smith did go ahead in his acceptance speech, apologize, because he did win an award. He apologized to everybody but Chris Rock. And then he ended the conversation by saying something that has actually kind of gaslit people as much as the moment itself. He kind of defended himself at the beginning by saying that he's a protector of his family and people, much like the character he played in King Richard. But also at the end, he said, love makes you do crazy stuff. And I will play it. But a lot of people have pointed out how that is typical defense behavior for someone who's done something like that.
Art imitates life. I look like the crazy father, just like they said. I look like crazy father, just like they said about Richard Williams. But love will make you do crazy things.
Yeah, I don't know how that defense is going to play. I don't know how any of it's going to play, to be honest. I am a little curious. I'm not a fan of cancel culture. I don't support any of that. But cancel culture goes after a lot of people for a lot of reasons. I wonder if this will be one of them or maybe not. And then actually just for bad takes out there, and then I actually am going to get away from this topic. Judd Apatow was one of the people who reacted to it, a writer, director. And he made a comment when very much being in the side of Chris Rock and not Will Smith, of saying that Will Smith could have killed a guy with that open hand slap. He then took that post off social media because that was super dumb because you could not murder a man, at least I don't think, with an open-handed slap. We'll have to do some research. I'll get back to you. All right. President Biden made some mistakes, all mistakes that the White House had to walk back. President Biden also kind of hates the press, at least in my opinion. There is a significant amount of audio out there, audio of moments in which over the years, the president has gone after members of the press. Now, remember, as we talk about multiple things that Trump did and no one was okay with, and someone else might do and everyone seems fine with, this is another one. The current president does not call them fake news, does not call them the biggest threat to our society and whatnot, but he does just yell at them to their faces over the years and recently within his political career. Let's play a mashup of those.
Ask the right questions. What a stupid son.
Come on, man. That's like saying you, before you got into this program, you take a test where you're taking cocaine or not. What do you think, huh? Are you a junkie? What do you say?
Go back and read what I said.
Wait. You're getting nervous, man.
That is an interesting reading of English. I assume you got into journalism because you like to write. I want to talk about happy things, man.
What the hell? What do you do all the time?
So
when did I say I was coming?
You said in the next 6 months you'll be able to determine.
What I said was, let's get it straight.
I think I probably have a much higher IQ than you do, I suspect.
Well, that's not true. You're saying things you do not know what you're talking about. No one said that. Who said that? Who said that? You don't understand that. You're in your own business.
Can I ask you a quick question on Israel before you drive away?
No, you
since it's so
can't.
important?
Not unless you get in front of the car as I step on it.
Vice President, is that okay?
Don't screw around with me. Let's get it straight. No, let me listen to me.
I'm listening. Why are you the other guy that always shouts out questions? So don't poke that in my face, okay, buddy? But only you would ask that.
Guys, we gotta go.
You're a good man. You're a good man.
Thank you guys. This is all the time we have.
You know, maybe that's why everybody gets kicked out now. Maybe it's because we don't want the president to fly off the handle. I've always thought every time that his staff immediately starts yelling at everyone to get out of the room as soon as they think the president might make a mistake of any kind, answering a question or saying something, even asking questions to other people he's talking to in whatever the press event might be, and they get ushered out. I've always thought that was just protecting Biden from a gaffe. Maybe it's also protecting the press from anger. And honestly, it's actually kind of interesting to play both the Will Smith slap of Chris Rock's face and then all the times that our current president over his political career has been less than kind to members of the media that are interviewing him. And I guess the biggest reason to play any of that is to continue to point out as many times as we can the weird hypocrisy that a lot of us know exists, depending on whether you're a Republican or a Democrat and how people react to you. To be honest, and actually, I didn't even plan to talk about this much today, the Hunter Biden laptop thing and the New York Times confirming a part of it from this must be about a week or so ago is one of the craziest developments in a story that already had significance to a lot of people. The New York Times confirming it didn't matter to a lot of people who thought it was real already. But for anyone that denied that it was, the New York Times is probably one of those entities that can convince you that denying the reality of something is no longer something you should do, again, if you're on a side of the aisle that fought the Hunter Biden story to begin with. And so the silence on it, the lack of additional interest in this topic and the things that are said and the way that the big guy would be involved in political corruption is shocking. It's jarring to me, more so than anything else. I feel like if you were going to have a conversation with a person in your everyday life, and you're going to land on all these minefields that are conversations in today's society where you're going to disagree and they're going to put words in your mouth and you might do the same, that one of the most valuable ones now where you can no longer really question any of these overarching topics of if media is biased, if there is a difference between how Democrats and Republicans are treated, or at least how they hold themselves. Democrats always convincing us that they are the paragons of good and that Republicans are the worst people in the history of society. That's the Democratic narrative. That this story single-handedly destroys all of it. And yet, for some reason, it's still not a topic that is dominating conversations. Instead, we got Will Smith slapping a guy, and we have some other things out there in the news, including, actually, I'll take a break, and then we'll touch on it more. The whole desire to have Zelensky somehow appear at the Oscars is one of the stupidest things I've also seen as a conversation. The guy's at war, and people were upset or hoping, Amy Schumer, one of them, that they could somehow find a way for him to be a part of the award show. It says something else about the elitist personalities or the elitist just gap of understanding just how different you think you are than the rest of us in the world of Hollywood. But I'll get to that in more detail next. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
To be free. I am not a terrorist. I am not Antifa. I am not a sex slave that wears masks.
Don't be a cutie pie.
Probably sit around and cook some soups and eat bread and desserts and just get all fat and sassy.
You're running my life, bud!
Yeah, you haven't seen anything yet.
You're listening to The Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Just a very quick, kind of separate Oscar story that was out there. Sean Penn had vowed to destroy his Academy Award if Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky wasn't invited to speak at the Oscars. I just want to say this about it. I would play the audio, but I actually don't care enough. We're going to move on to other things. There's no better representation of how elite the people of Hollywood think they are, that they think that's an appropriate platform for a man who's leading a country that is currently at war. They're like, yeah, we can raise awareness to whatever it is they want to raise awareness to by this person appearing somehow. They could have played a tremendous amount of video, audio stuff that already exists out there. They could just go find it and play it on their own. They don't need a personal appearance from a man who is, as I said, fighting for the life of himself and his entire country. They could just run an ad, take a few minutes of time to do that. Instead, they also got in trouble for dumping Samuel L. Jackson and his acceptance speech of a Lifetime Achievement Award, which was an odd look in and of itself. But of course, the much worse look, the much more frustrating to a lot of people, or maybe something much worse than that, is the idea that Hollywood, wanted a actively engaged in combat world leader to pop up on the old show. Moving on, this is something I thought was interesting. The sanctions conversation has happened a lot around Russia and Ukraine. What did the United States do to try to prevent this? What didn't we do? Why didn't we do things sooner? The energy dependence that Europe specifically has on Russia is a huge part of how we've gotten here. And I believe firmly that the decision-making by Vladimir Putin to go ahead and invade Ukraine was fully based on knowing that, one, and knowing the position that Biden took on energy, on non-green energy, I guess I should say, on his way into and then once in office, including some executive orders to make it harder for oil and gas to produce their products and to do it valuably. Even with gas prices as crazy they are, and there are record profits in those industries, there still are some versions of loopholes that exist now that didn't exist before. But anyway, this is the U.S. ambassador to NATO. Her name is Julianne Smith. She popped up a lot over the weekend, and one of the consistent questions was about what the purpose of sanctions was. Let's see how she goes.
Are they meant to deter or not?
Well, look, before the war, obviously, we were laying out the consequences in pretty explicit detail with the hope that President Putin would take an alternative course. We were trying in that moment to sharpen his choice.
All right, let me try this again. The question was, were they meant to deter? Now, the description includes everything that deterrence is, but the word deter is not used because the president said sanctions were never meant to deter. And then there was viral audio of all the times his administration said the exact, like literally the exact opposite. But one more time, I don't even know why this is a move that, say, an ambassador or anyone else makes, because it treats a lot of us like we're very stupid, right? Because instead of saying yes, you describe what the definition of the word you're being asked about is without even using the word. And then you're like, I did good in the world of politics. One more time.
Are they meant to deter or not?
Well, look, before the war, obviously, we were laying out the consequences in pretty explicit detail with the hope that President Putin would take an alternative course. We were trying in that moment to sharpen his choice.
Isn't that trying to get him to not do a thing? Isn't that deterrence? Are we trying? Like what was said there? Did I get caught in some sort of like confusing version of a word puzzle that I now can't get out of? Or did she just describe to me what we all know this to be? And again, that's just kind of the move right now in the world of politics on a lot of this stuff. The president talked a lot about the opportunities that exist within the bad things happening in the world because he keeps talking about green energy and keeps confusing a lot of people. But of course, the sanctions that were used and the ones that definitely were not were intended to deter and did not work. And this administration can never admit fault of any kind on anything. And for some reason, we're not holding their feet more to the fire on these issues. Quick break, a lot more. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Thrilled to be here. Happy to have you on a Monday. A new study, although, said the pandemic was depressing. Of course, a lot of us struggled at times, especially when things were shut down, especially if you owned a small business. but only 5 times more depressing than a typical Monday. So I guess just let that be a part of your day-to-day. I apologize for it. It's out there. In Florida, they are protesting the war, or they're standing up for Ukraine, I guess, supporting Ukraine in a way that's just different from a lot of us. This feels like very valuable Florida news out there. A couple models, I guess is what they're calling themselves, spent the weekend walking around. I think this was in Miami Beach, just naked. Actually, you know what? I got to take that back. They were body painted with Ukrainian flags. And when asked why they were doing it, they were walking around trying to support peace. Obviously, most Americans agree with the message and the thing they're trying to get, more attention for. Not that I think you needed to do it in this way, but I honestly think they couldn't have picked a more unique and somewhat, I guess, stereotypically of Florida way of doing it. No word on if they succeeded, if anyone actually decided to say donate or help in any way, or if they just have their own new fans. I was a little bit, I guess, disappointed or something in some part of it. And I am a millennial, so maybe this is me being overly woke and or upset, that they were probably just trying to get their own message across, or more attention for them, as opposed to giving a crap about something that is actually a big deal. And that bothered me for some reason. And also, I guess, just the fact that, I wasn't there in Florida to judge for myself the appropriateness of it. I'm kidding. I'm going to move on. A couple other things, just sillier, more uplifting, or all different kinds of news, since I think we need that after being told how depressing Monday can be. A 7-year-old penned a sweet letter for a future adopter of his foster dog. The boy from Louisiana wants everyone to know that the former foster dog, Maggie, is super special, one of the best dogs ever. He actually said this: Maggie is so cute. Maggie loves to play fetch. Maggie is the best dog ever. Roman is his name. He concluded, "We love Maggie," and shared his hopes that a new owner would love her too. Here's my only thing. Roman is 7 years old. He's writing a letter about a foster dog that's in his household and saying how it's the best dog ever and he loves her, and the whole family does. If you're the parents of Roman, I think you probably are supposed to adopt the dog. Like, that would be me. That's my assumption, that if a kid is writing a letter this emotionally valuable and being told things like, yeah, Maggie's got to find a new home, we're just a temporary home for Maggie, that you're really, I know I took a negative slant. It is Monday. Apparently, this is a problem for all of us. But I was kind of jarred by that it was viral and nice and everyone liked it. They've seen pictures of Maggie cozy up in a bed and with the family. So they're happy, I guess, the new family. But again, I feel uniquely bad for this kid, and what probably was his hopes that his puppy would be a forever puppy. Anyway, I'll move on to something else. BuzzFeed recently conducted a poll that has a lot of people reacting to it. It is odd, to say the very least, because the poll is about bread. They found that sourdough is the number one type of bread, according to people who are just wrong. That is not accurate by any stretch of the imagination. White bread came in at number 2, getting 5% less of the vote than sourdough. 93% of people like to toast their bread. 74% of people like bread crust. But people are arguing about all the different bread-related things. And honestly, this shows two things to me. One, that we'll probably argue and or fight about anything right now. We're at a weird point in our society where it feels as though that's what we need to do. I actually had a weird experience at a drive-through restaurant recently that I might tell you in just a bit to further prove that idea, that I think people are just very upset, very stressed, and not sure exactly how to handle it. But the bread conversation also shows that to me. But then also, I think how fun the internet can be when it's dumb. Because like a lot of this conversation is actually fun, in my opinion, and it's totally different than anything you probably need or care about. Like the argument about bread crust and how 74% of people do eat it, 26% no. I think that cutting the crust off your bread, if you're not a child, is something that probably doesn't make sense to, well, apparently 74% of us. But hey, you do you. I guess I'm not here to judge. I am a little bit. If you're putting butter on your bread, 87% said yes, 13% no. Are you toasting it? Just 7% seem to not like life and how lovely a piece of toasted bread is. And then when we're at a restaurant, do you fill up on bread was the last question. 60% of us said yes. And I agree with that one too. Absolutely. it's a problem. I need bread to be in more limited supply before my meal is in front of, because there's no worse thing. Honestly, it's hurting the restaurant industry. This is a campaign I'll get behind too. You look at the menu of all the delicious items, you read the descriptions of them, they go away and they can't give that to you immediately, and they just leave a bunch of bread on the table. It is like going to the grocery store and looking at all the chips and things as you're trying to leave the store. It's just wrong. It's just a bad process. Let me get bread. And I don't know. Now I'm probably going to be in trouble for saying that we should have less bread in the restaurant. Anyway, let's move on again. I don't want to get in trouble. I love this one. Here's the last one of the things that I'll talk about that are probably not valuable news to you. And then I'll touch on something that is. But this might be something that you react to a bit. A study found that you should criticize your coworkers more. Sorry, hold on. All right. I think this study is trying to end society. That's what I think is trying to happen. A new study found that your coworkers might actually like to hear your thoughts on how bad they are at their job, as long as the criticism is quote unquote constructive. And we all know that we're super capable of weeding out what is constructive criticism and what we take as personal criticism. Most people are receptive to feedback. I think that's probably true. We usually don't say anything, but we don't like confrontation. So that's why. It's something that is even less likely to speak up on, I guess, if it's absolutely accurate. If the thing you're giving to someone is 100% true, you don't need to worry that they don't react strongly or at all to it, which I can't, again, imagine happening. Less than 3% of people in the study told researchers they had a smudge on their face, even though it was clearly visible. And so they did that and other things to test how honest we even are. But I just love every part of the idea of this. And here, I'll tell the story. I don't want to name the restaurant because it's a good restaurant. And it was just one employee who was doing a weird thing. But I went through a drive-through, and the car in front of us pulled up and got handed our food. And our food was handheld food. I don't know how to describe this any better. They were items that you hold in your hands. They don't go in a bag or anything like that. And then it was handed back to them. And my wife didn't want the items that the car in front of us had handled. And unlike Will Smith, I didn't go super crazy when my wife asked me to do a thing. I just pulled up next into the drive-thru, looked at the young person who was trying to hand me those items and said, hey, man, we don't feel comfortable. Can we get some new ones? And then some interesting things happened. The kid pretended to not understand me at all. He was like, what now, huh? And so I tried to ask a question to him. The question was, did you hand these items to the car in front of us? He said, no. He only gave me 2 of the 3 things I bought, by the way, and then closed the window of the drive-thru. And I was just sitting there like, our society has cracks in it. Things are broken. This is a silly version of that. This is not a serious version by any stretch of the imagination, but that I couldn't convince someone, a teenager, in a drive-thru of a restaurant to go ahead and give me 2 $2 items all over again. And then the third item I paid for even once was amusing to me. He then reopened the window when I didn't drive away, and I asked him one more time if I could have my last item and maybe get some things that are fresh. He said, no, you're good, and then closed the window again. Eventually, I got my third item by convincing him that I paid for it. But as I was driving away and thought about going in the restaurant to complain, and again, not Will Smith style, just my own, a much more polite version, my wife was like, no, let's just accept it and go. But to me, it's a really great moment in showing how frustrated I think a lot of people are and how incapable, for some reason right now specifically, I think a lot of us are at handling any conflict event. Maybe it's just because we're all like, and we shouldn't be. The pandemic feels to be very much behind us. I don't have a lot of talking points about it today, but it just seems like we're already at a 95 out of 100 on stress. And when anyone tips us over the edge, a lot of people don't respond great in today's current society. And I'm not trying to blame, but I have noticed my customer service issues that do happen are mostly with young people. And I know the Great Resignation is a thing. I know a bunch of other stuff is out there as far as the anger that some might have in whatever position it is you might currently have at whatever company you're working at. But it's never been this significant, in my opinion, where people just clearly do not give a crap about each other at all. And I actually have one other thought about that. And I know, again, I'm just going off on a tangent, but I can't help it. And I've blamed social media for this kind of stuff before on this very show and other places that I am. But I wonder if it's more unique than that. I wonder if the separation that our society has dealt with since a bunch of smart technology and cell phones and now social media exist has caused part of this issue. What I mean is we don't really interact individually with other people in our real lives the way we used to. And Mark Zuckerberg wants us to go even further. The road of everything is virtual and digital. And I certainly hope that he fails in attempting to create something that people should not be addicted to, a virtual world you put reality glasses on and go into. But I will be honest that maybe it's just that disconnect that makes us so incapable of being human. Maybe it's the reason Will Smith gets up and slaps Chris Rock as opposed to just taking the joke at his wife's expense. Maybe it's the reason that you actually physically confront and do something you shouldn't do to someone else, no matter how much the joke may or may not be appropriate. It's just that we're so disconnected and so incapable. And I'm not judging us. I don't want you to hear this right now and be like, hey, jerk, I'm somebody who's connected just fine. But I think society as a whole might be at a place where politically we're so divided. Other things cause us maybe to retreat to our corners. And then we had a 2-year version of a pandemic where a lot of people wanted to just live in their houses for the rest of their lives. I think it's caused part of this world we're in. And most importantly, it's why I couldn't get my very inexpensive items I was trying to get at a restaurant. And it's really all about me. That's what I'd like to say at the end of this. I want to take a break. After the break, more serious things to talk about. I want to play some audio of a question that was asked to an expert in the world of if Russia would ever see a internal struggle for power. That comes on the heels of something that the president said. All that coming up in just a bit. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
Serving up talk radio medium rare and dripping with irony. It's Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. To be honest, I actually thought I was going to talk about NCAA March Madness games a lot today. And this is the, unfortunately, only time we're probably going to get to a conversation about it. But I was really disappointed to see St. Peter's, the school out of New Jersey, lose to North Carolina, of all people. North Carolina, an 8 seed in the NCAA championship, the NCAA playoffs. And they got crushed. Like, they got smacked in the face, I guess I should say. Like, it feels appropriate today. 69-49, the final score. And really the first half was a first half. My wife, not a huge fan, I would say, of sports. She likes it at times. She watches things like the Super Bowl, and at times I can rope her into things like playoff games, whether it's baseball and my New York Yankees, who I love quite a bit, and thrilled that baseball is going to be back after the almost not version of the season this year. And then I got her to watch yesterday. And what the biggest problem was, and this is me now complaining for myself, is I had told her how amazing the St. Peter's run was, that they were a team that had done something no 15 seed had ever done, that they beat, obviously, of course, Purdue to get there. The biggest upset, of course, was Kentucky. And then I even told my wife, her name is Betty, about the amount of money that the schools that were defeated by St. Peter's had as far as their basketball budgets, the millions of dollars that they had at their disposal to spend. And St. Peter's very, very modest $250,000 budget, and how awesome it was. And you know what it's sort of like when you rope somebody in who's not connected to a big sports story and it's playing out in front of us, and then it goes the way it did yesterday. It's sort of like when you recommend a TV show or a movie, and then right when you do that, there's like the worst part of the TV show or the movie happens. I once did that with Mad Men for my college roommate and his mom. I was talking to them about how great the show was when it popped up on television. And then one of the harder moments I don't even want to describe in Mad Men happened in front of us. And I was like, yeah, it's not always like this. The show is not always doing stuff like this. And my wife walked out of the room partway through the first half like, this isn't fun. None of the things you said about this were fun. But still, congratulations to the program in St. Peter's for going as far as they did. I was tremendously moved, like I think a lot of people were, and cheering for the biggest underdog in the history of sports. I do think it's significantly bigger, even though they didn't actually go on to win everything, than some of those other big moments like the Miracle on Ice, although it's close. And again, the Miracle actually won, so they get a Disney movie. I don't know if St. Peter's will get a movie. I don't know if they will, because again, it's not really a fun ending, although maybe there's some sort of life lesson in it. I want to move on to this. A belligerent guy was in the wrong seat at a movie theater. and went on a 3-minute tirade, just very, very upset, probably intoxicated. I want to play part of the audio because I do think it's interesting, and I've been touching on a topic of our frustrations in society. I think that the movie employee handled himself pretty incredibly here, and obviously the dude eventually, I think, got totally kicked out. But don't do this. Don't live this life if in this situation. And movie theaters now, and maybe this is just a mention or a piece of information for that one guy, they do sometimes assign actual seats. So if you're not aware of that, it might be a struggle like it was for him.
I pay my money. I have a right
to sit in your seat, correct?
Yes,
that's
my
not,
seat.
That's not your seat.
How can you tell it's not my seat?
Because your ticket has your seat number on it.
To me, that's like, how can you tell which way we're going when you're going the wrong way sort of move?
Whatever. And this will be the last time that I come to this imagined theater. All right, I paid my money.
Great.
Does anybody
please
here
don't come
think
back.
it doesn't matter where you sit? It's not assigned seating.
I love how you turn to the audience. You're in a 3-minute tirade against one employee where you really just have to sit in the seat with the number on it that's on your ticket. And you turn to the people with you and you're like, support me. I keep thinking everything through the cone of what happened last night at the Oscars. It was like when Will Smith was hoping for more support from the rest of said audience. Let's continue.
It is. Go sit in your own seat. Thank you.
I'm not going to.
Then I'm going to ask you to leave.
You did, like 4 or 5 times. And that's why now we have a disturbance. I could sit right here.
Sir, we're not doing this.
One seat off.
Are you going to listen?
All right, go ahead.
I love all right, I'm going to stop with that audio. I also love the moment where he's like, this is why we now have a disturbance. It's not the decisions I'm making to scream and yell at everyone and refuse to sit in the seat that's on the number that's on my ticket here. It's because you people are making me do this right now. It's not my fault. It's yours. And I wish to be treated better. Well, I'm yelling and screaming. All right, fine, a little more.
At this point, you are disrupting the show for these fine folks.
Right.
We're going to ask you to leave. We'll get you a refund, though.
I don't know. I might want to be taken out in handcuffs now.
Sir.
I want more than just a refund.
Okay.
Can I get a drink?
We'll take care of you in the lobby.
Fine. And then I won't come back.
Good.
Okay.
And I'm going to make sure everybody knows about this.
Okay.
Goodbye, everyone. Enjoy your movie.
I don't know. And part of me would think that that was a pre-show to the movie show that I was getting after, to hear him do all that. Enjoy your movie. Can I get a drink too? I'm never coming back. Great. Everyone's on board with that, sir. You live that life however you want to live it now moving forward. Just very, very interesting, very confusing, to say the very least, of every part of that. But certainly a man who seemed to appreciate the fact that we can just go nuts in society now and that people are going to film it and then react to it later. But in the moment, nobody other than the staff did anything. I think more people should have been yelling at this guy to leave. All right, quick break, a lot more. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Happy Monday. Thrilled to be here. Chad is back in a couple days. Elon Musk says that he's going to be building a new social media platform. The billionaire made the remark after claiming that Twitter doesn't allow for free speech. Yes, a lot of people would agree that most of the Silicon Valley social media companies out there in the world have a bias in the world of what is and what isn't accurate and how that stifles free speech. He actually also put a poll up on Twitter. That would be Elon Musk asking people, do you think Twitter is capable of free speech? Yes or no, essentially. And a lot of people said no. Something like 70% of those who follow Elon lean in that direction. So the guy who built Tesla, the guy who at times goes after politicians, he actually also said over the weekend, I think in a podcast, that he feels as though we shouldn't look to try to live longer lives. And the reason why is that politicians ruin everything. Specifically, I think he name-dropped Biden and Nancy Pelosi as people that are going to screw up any value or happiness we have. A guy who's trying to go to Mars, a guy who's building the electric cars that we're being told we all should be driving, is also saying that we shouldn't live longer lives because of the politicians themselves. Elon Musk is an interesting guy, and a guy that I'm vastly entertained by more often than not, whether I agree or disagree with whatever it is he's saying. But he said that there needs to be an alt social network out there in the world that actually allows for people to have that most basic of rights that we seem to care about so much here in this country, and not stifle it. And actually, like, just real quick, I'm shocked we don't already have a significant challenger to Facebook. I know Twitter technically, and Instagram, which is owned by Facebook, is sort of technically another big social media site and whatnot. I know TikTok, of course, is out there. But really, we just use them all, right? I mean, all the ones that get significant enough, it's sort of like a streaming service right now. You just add it to the Rolodex of things that you're on or look at or talk about, as opposed to just moving away from one to the other. Unless I guess you're a younger person. I think younger people, at least, are not on Facebook as much as everybody else, but they're sneaky. They own those other platforms. So good luck. I would like to see Elon succeed. Of course, our former president also involved in creating some social media out there. And I don't know what it is, like what's the linchpin to it being successful or not, other than the fact that just a bunch of people are on it, because I think that's all it takes. And then boom, wild success. As far as some of the things we're struggling with, e-scooters are having a moment because of gas prices surging. I find this hilarious for a couple reasons. One, I've been making jokes on another radio thing I do regularly, obviously not filling in for Chad, the only gig for me. And I've been joking with listeners about how I needed to ride my e-scooter that I have because a family member works in the industry, and they were able to give me one at one point, which was pretty cool. And I enjoyed it for a few days after you get gifted the e-scooter. But it's been pretty much collecting dust since. And I was thinking about taking it on some somewhat busy streets to get to work for just a day, just to feel the version of that it would be like. And I'm sure it's a bad idea, but it's essentially what they're asking us to do if they keep pushing green energy on us and keep saying electric is the future. And a lot of people don't have the electric car yet and probably don't want to replace whatever car they do have immediately. Then you got to go another road. But 70% increase in sales from last year in the world of the e-scooter, 60% up in website traffic in general. So a lot of things trending in the direction of a whole bunch of people out there on very slow moving, high risk of injury devices to navigate the gas price issue. But it's still not something where we need to, ramp up production. Of course not. Also, American consumers, just kind of rapid fire some of the other reactions out there, are starting to hit a breaking point as far as dealing with the ever rising prices of everything. Demand is starting to truly drop. That is, I think, outside of action actually taken by our politicians to in some way, shape, or form curtail some of this stuff. The only other way that it eventually goes the other direction is if demand does drop. And I'm shocked it's taken so long, I guess, for people to accept or deal with any sort of reality of what can and can't be afforded in today's current world. Every time I go to the grocery store and I leave there, I wonder what the hell I just bought for a little while until eventually I realize just the regular things cost a ridiculous amount more. But finally, demand seems as though it might fall off a cliff. That's not a good thing. I'm not saying that in a way that I'm actually happy about it. Obviously, it'd have very negative impacts on things like our economy and the reason why we should be caring about this more in some places than we are, and not just pivoting to things we can't do that we say will fix the problem, but they obviously won't. It's just very interesting that I think we're spiraling toward, and as we're in a midterm election and then a upcoming election in just a couple years, those will be the biggest topics. If you can't afford food, fuel, plastic, metal, all this stuff that winds up skyrocketing prices on everything, and gas just honestly alone, such a significant one, of course, we go the direction we do. All right. Other things out there in the news. I just want to touch on this quickly. The president made several mistakes during his trip abroad. Of course, one of the things that President Biden said he would do better than our former president was handle those relationships, handle those moments of international interest with our country. Here is an expert talking about this. I believe this is on Fox News, Rebecca Grant, saying that, yeah, there are going to be some issues and maybe there's going to be some walking back. This was before the administration absolutely walked back one of the three mistakes Biden said.
Russia is failing, and a defeat of the Russian military in Ukraine can make Europe safer for generations. But Eric, you're right. That was a stunning remark by Biden. He said, for God's sakes, Putin must not remain. I think that's unprecedented in U.S.-Russian diplomatic history. That puts U.S.-Russia relations in the deep freeze. It was a huge and stunning revelation. Absolutely, he did call for regime change. Let's see if the State Department or White House tries to walk that back later or not.
Oh, yeah, they did. I have some of that. I'll play in a second. There was also this. This was on CNN. This is about the trip itself. Rebecca Heinrichs is the one giving this feedback. So it is kind of everywhere, I guess. The trip, not exactly gone to plan.
Unfortunately, the message is confused, which is why President Biden, I think, kind of worked himself up in this speech, and then he made a comment that he did. You know, but the White House's response, though, to say what he really meant is really gaslighting the American people. We know that he really doesn't want Putin to be in power. And they could have just said, listen, we all recognize that Putin is evil. What he's doing is evil. But the policy of the United States is, in fact, to get to a position of peace in Ukraine. And we're going to arm the Ukrainians to make sure they can get to a negotiated peace. The other thing I would say, too, is this isn't his only gaffe. President Biden also made the gaffe about sending the 82nd Airborne into Ukraine, which we're not doing. And he also said that the United States would respond in kind if there was a chemical weapons attack on the part of Russia. So this really was, it was not a good, I think, trip for the president because the three big gaffes.
I love that. Sorry. I love that part at the end.
So this really was, it was not a good, I think, trip.
Not a good job done there when those three things are all fairly significant. All right, let's go ahead and play them too. When CNN gets it, though, we know that we're in a significant place in our lives, in our society. Here are the three mistakes by the president and then the three walkbacks by his administration.
For God's sake, this man cannot remain in power.
The White House trying to make clear in the aftermath, or making very clear in the aftermath, he was not, in fact, calling for regime change.
And you're going to see when you're there, some of you have been there, you're going to see women, young people stand in the middle of front of a damn tank.
White House officials are telling us that President Biden does not intend to send U.S. troops into Ukraine.
If chemical weapons were used in Ukraine, would that trigger a military response from NATO?
It would trigger a response in kind.
The United States has no intention of using chemical weapons, period, under any circumstance.
The reason I laugh is that our president is incapable of even understanding, what messages he is supposed to be throwing out there into the world. I love how I stuttered on that moment. He's incapable of providing those clear messages to our own people and to the people in all the countries that would be paying as close of interest as we are to the leader of our country. And anyone, again, that criticizes any past president for mistakes made, just blind in the world of what's going on here. One other quick thing. I just want to play this before we take a break. It is former President Trump. He gave a speech. He had a rally. There was some contention as to whether or not it was well attended or if people walked out during it. The former president said, of course, no. Other people think maybe yes. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I do believe that former President Trump will be and is a valuable political person still. And it is interesting to think about if he had remained in power as our president and how he would be a few years away from being out of office and probably not as politically influential as he is having this period where he's not and can run again for the president of the country. But here it is talking about our military, specifically one leader of our military and what's gone on, why the Afghanistan exit was so terrible, how we left all our equipment there and essentially armed what is now an enemy of ours, and how all of this is relevant, of course, and I'm not going to get to that, but I know that that's where the slant is going when we're talking about Ukraine and Russia. And if you simply believe that the biggest reason that Russia decided now was the right time to invade a country and then bomb civilians, kill innocent people, women and children, is just because of their stranglehold in the world of gasoline, the world of I guess, natural gas as well, then I think you also blame this current president because of his ability to help out in that world. If you do think it's just weakness at the top, and that's the reason that Putin chooses now as opposed to the Trump administration to invade, that also appears to be a significant attack that former President Trump will lay at the feet of both the president and some military leaders.
Well, I put the general Patton up. You saw that, right? Where the hell are our General Patents? Millie. How about Millie? Sir, it's cheaper to leave the equipment, sir, than it is to take it out. $85 billion. I said, you mean it's cheaper? We could send a pilot in, take a plane out. We'll send 200 pilots. We'll bring our planes out. We'll bring them to Pakistan and we'll fly them into the United States. You think it's better to leave them there? $100 million planes and helicopters? Sir, it's cheaper. I tell you, it's cheaper, sir. That's when I realized he was a freaking idiot. And that's when, no, that's what happened.
Look, there's something about the way in which, whether you hate him or not, that he covers some of those issues that does seem so different. You know, maybe it's not that people, even the biggest supporters of the former president, love him. Maybe it's that they hate the way every other politician speaks so much more than that, because there's certainly not a lot of people who say it quite like that. A quick break, a lot more. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
Irreverent? Yeah. So what? It's the Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Thrilled to be with you. Lots of stuff to talk about. There is a new workout trend. I just want to report this news to anyone out there. A lot of gyms, apparently, in order to entice customers back after the pandemic stuff that probably made, unfortunately, a whole lot of people turn away from going to the gym, is to offer more relaxation, more rest and relaxation, specifically inside the gym. Apparently, there's a demand for quote-unquote gentle workouts. Look, there are moments where our society goes so far a certain way, or at least some people in our society go a certain way, that we lose any ability to do anything in the world of strength, toughness. I think a lot of the things that you need to have a well-rounded life. And I think the demand for gentle workouts at the gym is one of those moments. I'm not saying I wouldn't enjoy it. The gym that I go to has relaxation things. There's little spa areas where you can get like a hydro massage. You can go tanning. You can do that stuff. But I do think at the gym, if you want the value to be there, you mostly got to go there to do things that are not gentle as far as working out goes. One guy is interested in just stretching classes. Now, that sounds like a guy who's interested in some things that are not necessarily working out at all. And if he wants that class to be with ladies, which I imagine he probably does, I get where he's going there. Other people just offering all kinds of things in the world of even a nap time potentially being possible. I mean, look, I don't know who needs this message. I imagine most of you don't. But if a PSA ever needs to be recorded, I am the one absolutely to volunteer to do it, to tell you not to nap at the gym. Do not set up all of your items to go to the gym, wear all the gym clothes. So when you get there, you rent the nap room and you take a quick nap. It's, oh my God, it's my favorite, actually, in a lot of ways. There are also like pizza parties and things that happen in gyms. I'm not judging. I think that's fine. I think it's fun to create a community. But I have always thought about that. The one place I don't want to eat like I normally do when I'm anywhere else in the world is anytime I go eat at the gym. Anytime that I'm having food while watching people working out, it's the worst moment for me. I guess I'm just saying for myself in like acting normal as far as, oh yeah, I'll have 2 or 3 more slices of this pizza here. When usually I'm like, no, just a little bit of the salad, my friend, and I'll feel great. One other quick story, and then we got to take a break. We have a guest coming up in a bit, Rich Lenkov, in about 10 minutes or so. Will chat with us about some things. But a woman had a fight with her friends that I thought was tremendously interesting. Apparently, she had a massive hunt spider that popped up on her ceiling. This woman is in Australia. She decided to name the spider Simon and then let it live in her house for a few weeks. When her friends visited her and saw the spider, they freaked out, and one demanded she kill her friend. And then fighting ensued. This, to me, is one of my favorite fights I've heard about via the internet because I don't even care who's right. I just love the fact that a friend comes over to a house, gets mad at a woman that's letting a spider live on her ceiling for 2 weeks, and she's named it Simon. And then they have an all-out fight where the friend demands that it die or else they're leaving the house. I would have just had fun. I don't care even what the outcome is at the end of that whole story. I'm not even on a cheering side anymore. I am just a very interested spectator of all things in that world. And I need an update on this story, actually, too. I know that the woman, I think, put it out there herself. I desperately, desperately need more information so I know what happened. I want to know if Simon's okay. I want to know how he's doing if he's not okay. I need everything on this. And I also want way more about the friend. I want to know what else they do when they go to other friends' houses, what they demand change. And I'm not defending a woman for letting a spider live on her roof, on her ceiling. I just think every part of this is amazing. And I guess I want to be friends with all involved and then gaslight them on a weekly basis. I'll turn it into a podcast or a show. Quick break, a lot more coming up. Greg Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. We turn to Rich Lenkov as a legal expert, a guest, a practicing lawyer. He is also a voice on Legal Face Off, a premier podcast from WGN Radio and their podcast platform. Also Trial by Vinyl, which is a very fun conversation about the aspects of any given record from the legal perspective. Rich, welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thanks for having me, Craig.
Thrilled to have you on. A couple quick things. The first one being the Supreme Court stuff. Ketanji Brown Jackson, is the judge that's been nominated. A lot of the questions being asked of her, if you ask people on one side of an aisle, would tell you that they're appropriate. The other side would say they're ridiculous and offensive, I think. What say you about the way the process has gone so far?
Well, there's no outline. There's no rules about what or what is not relevant to a Supreme Court nominee. Now, the Constitution says that the Senate has an advised consent rule. It doesn't go on to say what that means. So, over the years, historically, senators have been given great leeway in asking what they want to. And as you probably know, and most of your listeners are aware, this has become more of a spectacle and more of an opportunity for the questioners than the questionee. So, there was a lot of questions to Judge Jackson about her perceived leniency by some of the Republican senators in dealing with child predators, and sex criminals and pedophiles. And there was also some questions about her dealing with Guantanamo Bay inmates, both with the goal of showing that she's soft on crime. I think those questions were perfectly acceptable. Some, of course, differ with that. Yeah.
What's interesting to me is it seems that two things are now occurring every time we go through this process. One, as you just said, since there are no rules, a lot of politicians take it as their opportunity to attack talking points or to make their position known on issues of the day that have nothing to do with the person sitting in the room, supposedly being asked questions about their capabilities of becoming a Supreme Court justice. It's just performative and other stuff. The other one is there may be one or two real life issues that people can understand without having a lot of legal experience, expertise, any of that, that I think does transcend a little bit and talk to us as just humans. And certainly, as you just touched on it, the conversation about a leniency on child predators is, to a lot of Americans, significant. Now, granted, it has no impact on the potential outcome here. This person will probably be added to the Supreme Court. There's no real scenario where that doesn't happen. But what is your opinion about that issue specifically? Is that the type of thing that it's just harder for us to understand as the American people the way that legal things happen, or is there something else at work?
You're 100% correct. Listen, it's a lot easier to digest the idea that she was below the sentencing guidelines for these kind of offenders, or that she wrote briefs while she was a defender on behalf of Guantanamo Bay inmates, sympathizing with them, according to the theory that these senators are pursuing. That's a lot easier to wrap her head around than the arcane business of the Supreme Court, which is boring, of course, and hard to follow. So, yes, it's, the goals of these senators to digest her career into, a couple of issues that are much easier to understand in the 20 minutes they each have or so. So, yeah, I think you're right. And now, does that give us a foresight into how she will act as a justice? Probably not, but it certainly makes for much more interesting TV than talking about, res ipsa or some other constitutional theories.
Well, and actually, that's just one other question then about all of this, as far as you said, in the just level of interest in it and just all the conversations around it. Is it important for most of us to understand how this process has been changed over the years? And a lot of it, certainly it doesn't matter what side of the aisle is in there, just winds up being the same as this one. A lot of it isn't really relevant. And even more importantly, I guess, the last part of the question, it's of the value of whoever has been nominated to not give any insight into how they'll rule when in the world of being a Supreme Court justice. So it's competing forces. One, the questions don't matter, and the answers are unlikely to ever actually provide any relevance anyway.
Right. At best, I think that's all true. It's a bit of a parlor game. It's a bit of a show. It's a bit of a circus. I think at best you could take the opportunity to hear how a potential justice has come to this point in their career, how their experiences have shaped them, and how they predict how they will be on the court. But listen, at the end of the day, none of it matters, Craig. It's a numbers game. If you've got the majority in the Senate, you are going to vote for your party's nominee, period. And maybe that's the way it should be, right? I mean, maybe the sitting president should have wide latitude to appoint someone regardless of their experience levels or regardless of their competency, just because that's what the Constitution says is the role of the president.
Yeah, interesting. Let me shift gears. I know that you're a defense attorney. Are your people on the phone with Chris Rock by any chance, or any conversations happening as far as file? I think that he declined to file a police report as the latest news we have there. But I would love legal ideas as to what occurred, what could have been the next legal step here.
Well, it's a misnomer to think that Will Smith will not be charged with a crime simply because the victim does not want to charge him. And that's an understandable misnomer. But the fact is, the prosecutors in any jurisdiction are responsible for the people. That's why when you file, when you see a criminal complaint, it's not, victim versus accused. Yeah. It's state of California versus accused, because the prosecutor has a responsibility to uphold the law for all of us, and not just the victim. So whether the victim consents to press charges is a factor that the prosecutor in this case will consider when deciding on whether to charge Will Smith. It's not the only factor.
Gotcha. So do you think that there should be charges? Do you think that this is something that would have a significant punishment if Will Smith were found guilty? What's your idea of the actual, and did you see the slap, by the way? Just curious.
It was one of the most, I texted, obviously we were all on the phone texting a million people afterwards, like every other human, but I mean, I told someone it was the most shocking live event I've ever seen. I couldn't remember, I don't think I witnessed the shuttle explosion or any assassinations or attempts, live. This was, to me, the most shocking live event I have ever seen on this planet. Do I think he should be charged? 100%. Ask yourself this question. If this was anyone else, let's say it was a stranger who walked in off the street and slapped the presenter, that person would be in handcuffs within seconds, right? They would have been taken down. Yeah. For Will Smith to walk in, it doesn't matter that he was, a guest of the Academy Awards, for him to walk from a seat and, batter Chris Rock in response to something that he said, to me, it's a no-brainer. It's an open and shut case. There's no, defense to, oh, you upset my wife. Well, okay, that's not a defense to battery.
Oh, yeah, I understand. What do you think the potential penalty could be? I know this is probably the hardest of the questions to answer since it's California law specifically, but do you think that if it actually gets to a legal process, which I imagine both of us are assuming it won't, but if it did, that the punishment, because it's not like you can defend or deny any part of it. We have a fairly good record of what occurred. What do you think the punishment could be?
Well, according to California penal codes, 240 and 242, which I just happen to know.
Look at Rich doing his research.
All right, exactly. The penalty for simple battery is up to 6 months in county jail and a fine of $2,000. Wow. So, listen, we all know that's probably not going to happen, given that celebrities are treated differently. But that is the potential penalty according to local California law.
Wow. So interesting. I know that some people even thought that all of it was just a publicity stunt, but I think that Jussie Smollett is still behind bars. So I doubt that that's what it was. Real quick, one last one for you. This is specific to Chicago, where I know you're out of. There was a shooting on one of the public transportation platforms, the CTA, and now there is a big debate as to whether or not that shooting was in self-defense. Can you give us a little more information about what's going on there and how this incident became something that's certainly big news, at least in parts of our country?
Yeah, it will be, trending nationwide for sure, because the CTA worker, Chicago Transit Authority worker, was involved in a verbal altercation with a patron. By all accounts, the patron was intoxicated, and the CTA employee left his booth, and they got physical, and the patron pushed the CTA employee to the ground. CTA employee pulls out a hammer and tries to swing it at the assailant. The assailant kicks him in the face. And here's where it gets interesting. On video, we see the assailant leave the scene, which is a CTA red line platform, and walk or run down the stairs to exit. The CTA employee then pulls out a handgun and shoots the person in the back and in the leg. I think I saw 9 different times. He is now facing 2 felony charges, including attempted murder and unlawful use of a weapon in connection with the attack. And, I think one question is, was this self-defense? Is this stand your ground? Well, Illinois doesn't have a stand your ground law similar to other states, but you do have the right to defend yourself in Illinois. The question is whether this qualifies, whether this was the use of, number one, reasonable force, and number two, whether the assailant considered himself to be an imminent danger. I don't think either of those qualify here when you shoot someone in the back who has already left the scene. So I don't think those will be viable defenses.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because obviously there's other court cases we can think of where those same types of conversations are being had, those same types of questions are being asked. And I guess this is one of those moments where you really have to understand it from a legal standpoint more than anything else. To most everyday people, it's probably fairly obvious to think that if you're shooting someone who's running away and left the scene of any incident, that you cannot think that you're any longer in mortal danger. But there are going to be legal aspects of this that probably get a little confusing. Is there any precedent you can think of or any other court case where it's gone the way of this obviously is not self-defense?
No, I don't think there's any case that supports the self-defense theory when someone is at the bottom of a stairwell.
Running away.
You don't have a gun. You don't running away. You haven't. Who knows? Even if he turned to face the CTA employee, we have no information or evidence that the victim had a gun or anything. And even logistically, I mean, if he had a gun, perhaps that would be self-defense, but it doesn't sound like he did. So, yeah, I don't think the self-defense defense is going anywhere in this case.
Gotcha. Is there any other reason that you think that this will be a big story nationally? Are there any aspects of it that play into other things that obviously create some of these viral stories?
Well, it's on video, of course, and another example of Chicago crime. And a lot of CTA. I mean, the employee has already been terminated, but I don't know the extent to which. I mean, the CTA has a rule that you cannot carry a handgun on the job for good reason, but I don't know to the extent of CTA employees who are carrying weapons. I mean, there's certainly a lot of risk involved in that job these days. So who knows?
Well, it is interesting too to say at least this, and then I'll let you go. And thank you so much for joining us, Rich. That every so often, a few court cases just wind up being national news, and national attention is provided to them. And I wonder how they're picked, because I'm sure there's a lot of court cases similar to the ones that we wind up talking about that no one knows about at all. But thank you, as always, Rich Lenkov, legal expert, practicing lawyer, and host of Legal Face Off on the WGN podcast platform, and also Trial by Vinyl. Look forward to talking again soon.
Thank you, Greg. Appreciate it.
Yep. Quick break, a lot more. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
If you like talk radio like Chad Benson likes his meals, you've come to the perfect place for takeout.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins, filling in. Lots of things out there in the world to talk about. I can't get over one of the topics that I saw, though, about how we could live to be 150, according to a brand new study. I'm not sure that people would want to live to be 150, although I guess if, like, we improve the quality of what those years would be like, then maybe a lot of us do. I think that that's a good idea. But that's a simple question. Facebook.com/Craig Collins Show or Chad Benson Show. I know Chad's also very active on Twitter. To just let us know, would you want to live to be 150 years old? And I'm assuming a lot of people, the answer would be no. I saw this story about a woman who said she's lost years of her life due to an insatiable need to sleep. She has a medical condition. She is 23 years old. Her name is Helena. She feels tired all day long, no matter how much she sleeps, and has to take daily naps of at least 2 hours. She has a little-known condition, actually, called hypersomnia, which is, definitely something I've never heard of before, also known as excessive daytime sleepiness. So I was reading through, like, all the symptoms of this, and I feel for a person who has an actual medical condition that I definitely don't have. But there were so many moments where I was like, man, I get a version of this. It just sounds so much worse for her. She said she's been dealing with it since the age of 12. She has missed out on a lot of things. She would have to miss school. She had to cancel social events, all kinds of stuff, because she just needs to sleep all the time. And it's actually one other thing, and I know there's not a lot to react to here, but one other thing that I thought was interesting about every part of this is whenever I've thought to myself, like, man, I'd love to have some more sleep. I'd love to sleep all day or something like that. Reading her experience of a medical condition that actually causes that version of life has maybe woke me up. That's not the way I guess I should have put it, but oh well, to the idea that it would ever be great. I don't know why, but I feel bad for the person, and it's motivated me to no longer complain, at least for the next couple days, until I totally forget about that story like most of us do and then move on. One other thing I saw, this is a self-help thing out there. Someone asked a simple question. They said they left a high-paying job during the time of the pandemic. They just got another job a few months ago. They've only been at that job for 6 total months, and they hate it. Is it too soon to leave, was the question. And the advice given was not necessarily. Depends on a few factors. What I think is really interesting about this and any of the Great Resignation stuff that's out there is if you were at a pretty great job and you left for whatever reason during COVID, it doesn't sound like you got laid off, and you expected to immediately reenter the workforce and have an exactly identical position in life, that would be unrealistic. And I'm not telling people exactly how to live their lives. That's not something I guess I'm trying to do today. But so often, whenever you dive deeper into these stories or have these conversations about people who got fed up with this or that at work, maybe some of us don't like to articulate it out loud to those individuals, but it doesn't all sound like it's the most special version of your job is just so much more awful than any other job out there, or that, of course, another one's right around the corner, so go ahead and quit before you found it. My advice to this person would simply be, it's probably too soon to quit a job. 6 months in, especially if you have no other position that you're already interviewing for and trying to move on to, you should probably try to stick it out just a little bit longer. And I do think just simple advice like that might help a lot of us in a lot of ways. That's just me. I'm not trying to tell everybody again. I'm being overly worried today after the Will Smith situation in which he slapped a man. And I don't defend Will Smith for doing it, but I think there's going to be a lot of fallout from it. For some reason, that's making me overly censor myself today. But I think I can stand on that take, actually, now that I've thought about it again. Don't quit a job 6 months in unless the job is truly horrific. If it's just regular dislike of a job, I do think it might look bad moving forward. It's my second hot take of the day. And it's, not even very hot at all. All right, Craig Collins filling in, Chad Benson Show. Talk to you soon.
This is the Chad Benson Show.